Welcome to Tech Notice, my friends. This is the second part of this three-part series about this PC, the best Ryzen workstation PC money can buy. We're not talking about Threadripper here on the AM42nd, but Threadripper is called Ryzen Threadripper as well for some reason. In this video, I'd like to explain why I think it is a good idea for someone who's serious about content creation, video editing, animation, After Effects and things like that, to go with this exact configuration and why it's performing very well and comparing to some of the other things. So I'm basically gonna just list all my thinking behind this build and why these parts and why this one and that one and so on. Now I understand that this price point can be quite expensive for a lot of people. That's why we're also talking into alternative parts. And some of the cases, or actually a lot of the cases, you can go with alternative parts without losing any performance. So basically, let's talk about the alternatives. Well, let's talk about these PC parts. So before we actually start going step by step into every single part and, just check the YouTube chapters if you want to skip to certain parts or you want a certain parts or things like that, or if you're coming back to the video, you can easily find it. But there's a few things that we really need to get out of the way first to kind of clarify and so you understand exactly how this works. First of all, the links for every single part that I'm talking about that I used in this build or that I recommend or all the alternatives, you can find them all in the description. And also I'm using Amazon links in the description because this is just what I think the best shop to get them from, okay? And I'm not just saying this because this is the most beneficial thing for me to say. If you saw my Amazon ordered list, you would see that this is my most used shop ever. Like, I'm buying more stuff from Amazon than grocery stores because I really like the services. I just like how reliable it is. If there's anything wrong with it, I can just literally exchange it, return it, no questions asked, and it is very, very convenient. And that's why I'm recommending you to do the same, because I've had, and even with this PC, I thought, oh, maybe I'll try another shop. I again regretted it. Now looking back, I wish I went to Amazon. So links in the description. Second of all, I had a build in mind, like a theme, and the theme was orange and black. And you probably think, hey, you chose all the parts according to the color and you made compromises about the performance. And you would actually be wrong, because the two main components in here that actually affect the performance the most are the CPU and GPU. They are not color affected. It doesn't matter, what the CPU is doing underneath there. And the GPU over here, I know it's gray and the screen thing over there, and it's kind of not in the color theme, but actually you can change this and find this exact same GPU with different kind of looks. Different third-party manufacturers do this in a different way, so you can get this in a different way, but more about the GPU when we get to this GPU. So I had a color theme in mind, but the performance wasn't compromised because of the color theme. So generally the idea for this is, one of my subscribers, messaged me and said, oh, can you build me a beast of a machine? I don't do any gaming, just for workstation. So this is exactly what we're doing over here. We're actually building a beast of a workstation machine for video editing and animation, mostly in this case. I'm not saying it will be bad in gaming. It's probably going to do a good job in gaming, but it's not the point here. So I mentioned that this was actually from one of my subscribers. He mentioned that he's going to use Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, After Effects, and Cinema 4D were the main programs that it was going to use them on. So we're optimizing the performance for these types of things, okay? It can do a lot of the things and everything very well, but the main peak of how well it can do it was on these programs. When I did the last build, everyone kept asking what was the final price of this build. So let me get this out of the way. So all of this, what you can see in here, cost £2,729.45. If you want to go with some of the alternatives and some of the parts I'm going to mention in a moment, you can save hundreds of pounds without losing any performance on the table or compromising slightly on the performance, but mostly getting exactly the same build. Whew. So let's go through the parts. First of all, we're going to start with the CPU because that is the most important thing in this build. Most important meaning this is going to affect the performance the most. If you have more or less RAM, or maybe a better or smaller GPU, it doesn't affect it as much as having a good CPU over here, because these programs that we are trying to optimize this PC for are mainly CPU optimized. So if you're trying to think, okay, what would be the best kind of CPU for me, and if you have the same workflow, you're using the same programs, then one of the good or best benchmarks that you could look into is Cinebench R20, because as much as I've tested different computers and different benchmarks, then the Cinebench R20, whenever you look at the benchmarks over there, it very well translates to Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve and all of these, especially Adobe products, and Cinema 4D, especially because it's literally made for that. This is a good benchmarks to look when you're looking for a good CPU. One of the biggest questions you're probably having, why did you go AMD, not Intel? Now, Intel would have been probably a good choice a few years ago, but at this point, I believe that AMD gives you more bang for buck. Now, let's look at these Cinebench R20 scores over here, okay? We can see that the top of the chart is red, and that red is, AMD CPUs, and you can see then Intel over there. So if you find where the Ryzen 9 3950X is, so it's the best processor you can get for the AM4 socket. It's 16 core, 32 thread processor, absolutely a beast, okay? So you can see it is just below a Threadripper. The Threadripper are above it actually. And then below it comes Intel i9 10980XE, 9980XE, and then we have Xeons and other Intel ones. And then we have even Ryzen 9 3900X coming down there. And then further down, if you look, you can see Intel 10900K. So if you look at the price point of this Ryzen 9 3950X, I'm talking about pounds, by the way, because I'm based in England. So if you're looking this from the States, I know there's a lot of you who are watching this from the States, it generally converts to the same things, okay? Eventually it works out similar thing, whether it's more expensive or less expensive, anyway, it's pretty much the same. The Ryzen 9 costs around 650, 680 pounds, okay? And if we look at the one that's just below it, which is Intel i9 10980XE, which is 18 core processor, okay? We can see that the single core performance is worse, and the multi-core performance is worse. That processor costs around £1,000. So 650 pounds to £1,000, there is quite a big of a jump. So as you can see, it is very good price to performance ratio over here compared to Intel, okay? You can see some of the Intel down there, but this is just one of the examples. Also, another point is that if you go with the 10980XE platform, which is kind of equivalent to Threadripper type of thing, the platform is going to cost you so much more, okay? Even just the motherboards are going to cost so much more. Everything's going to cost so much more when you go with that one. Hopefully you can start to see that it's very good price to performance ratio over here with this processor, and that's why I'm not going Intel. So you might be watching this video and thinking, wait a second, AMD has just released the new 5000 series processors, and oh, what about this now? Why are you building this now? And is it going to be relevant when the new processors are going to come out? And yes, it is, because when the new processors, let's say the 5950X is going to come out, a new 16 core 32 thread processor that's going to perform even better is going to come out, that means that this 3950X processor is going to drop the price even more, meaning your price to performance ratio is going to be even higher. So that's why you're going to get even more bang for your buck. Also, just a quick little note is that if you want to upgrade later on, you'll see when we get to the motherboard, that motherboard supports the upcoming processors. It's very future-proof as well. You feel like, oh, my CPU is slow, slot the new one in, off you go. So this is if you have money for that CPU. Now, let's say you're like, wait a second, I need to save a little bit of money on the CPU because I don't think I can quite afford it. Now, the next option, what I would suggest to you is still stay on this platform, the AM4 platform. Don't go Intel, but go with the 3900X, not the 3900XT. That is a bit newer processor, but you're not going to get any more performance for your money. The performance to money ratio goes out of the window there. 3900X, which is a 12 core, 24 thread processor, and it is still a beast of a guy. And this is what I used on my Mac Pro killer video. If you haven't seen that one, it's absolutely beast of a processor. So if you haven't seen the video, check it out. It's another 3-part series of completely different builds, but it's very good. And there you can save probably around £250, which is quite a lot. because we know as editors, it's always good to save money to put it somewhere else. If you're a one-man band, put it on a camera or something else. Now you can see that the 3900X is better than the Intel 10900K. Now take the better with a pinch of salt, because we're just comparing certain aspects over here. I bet that the timeline performance will be a little bit better on the Intel, and the single core performance is about 2.5% better. When we're talking about rendering and general overall performance, how the AMD performs, it's gonna be better in most cases for you if you're doing the similar type of things. So that's why I would go with that one instead of a 10900K. Plus 10900K is more expensive than the 3900X, so that's why I would save a bit of money over there as well. Enough of CPU now. Hopefully this helped you with the thinking behind why this CPU. Remember, the links for this parts are in the description. Let's talk about the thing next to it that affects the CPU performance, which is the cooling, CPU cooling, okay? So first of all is the question, why air cooling, not water cooling? Okay, and when you look at online and do a little bit of research of what are the workstations and what type of cooling do the workstation use, then most of the cases, or 99% of the cases, it is air cooled. Now I have my own thoughts why I think they've gone air cooled, and you feel free to, you know, express your thoughts. Why do you think most of the workstations out there are air cooled? It's because I think air cooling is a little bit more reliable, shall I say? Or I know the AIOs and things are very, very good these days, but for some reason Mac Pro is not water cooled. I don't know why Apple's gone that way. So if you look into Puget Systems, for example, who's like one of the best workstation building companies out there, all of their PCs come with air cooling. And I think there is some kind of point we have to get onto that. In my case, I went with air cooling as well. Even though the processor says on the manufacturer website that, you know, water cooling is required or recommended when going with this processor, you can see very quickly in a moment that it is not necessary to go with water cooling. Air cooling, or going with the beefy air cooler, is well then enough in this case. We went with the BeQuiet Dark Rock Pro 4, which is I got 2 tower and 7 heat pipes and 2 fans, air cooling. And I like this because I think it fits the build as well. It's all completely black. It looks very industrial and beefy, and I like it a lot. Okay, I think that the design fits in this build as well, but the performance is not too bad. The rating of the cooling wattage for this cooler is 250 watts, and our processor is rated at 105 watt TDP, which is actually a bit of a lie because I've seen it draw 137 or 140 watts power, but regardless, it is very well enough. So how well did this processor or this cooler then do with this build over here? I wanted to completely max it out, which is not actually a real scenario, okay? I completely 100% benchmark the CPU at the same time as the GPU. So both of them are on a stress test running 100% load. Our GPU is like at 80 degrees and kind of stayed over there. And I did it for 20 minutes, and after 20 minutes took like a screenshot to show you what the temps were. Then our CPU was at 74 C temps, okay? And I'm not even sure if all the fans were running 100% ratio. So if you have a decent temperature in the room, then the PC will cool itself very, very adequately. Will do more than a good job, okay? Until the PC just heats up the room, and then it's gonna start to grimp up a little bit in temperatures. But just keep the room a little bit cooler. If it feels like a sauna, you know you've worked too long, take a break, open the window, cool it down. And the other option would be, which I very much like and what I usually go for, is Noctua coolers. And Noctua NHD15 is actually rated better, and whatever test you can find online is better than this cooler over here. And this is what I used on my Mac Pro killer PC as well, which is my main editing PC. So I've got the same processor over there, but the Noctua cooling, and it's this over there. And if you haven't seen the video, check it out. But it is very good cooler, and it's actually a little bit more expensive. So it's about £15 more expensive. So you could save about £15 and go in with this one, which is more than enough for this one. Other option would be Noctua as well, because it's all black and chroma black, by the way. Go with the chroma black, not with the normal grey and, you know, poo-poo color fans. No, no, no. So it fits the color theme. It's very good for performance and very affordable as well. Because with this processor, you're not getting a cooler in the box. You need an extra third-party cooler. So that's why we went with this one. Motherboard. Which motherboard did you go with? I went with Aorus X570 Ultra. When building a workstation, I think you should go with an X570 chipset. You should go with X570 chipset because you're gonna get a few benefits over there. First of all, you get thicker or better build quality. By the way, if you didn't know that, most of the X570 motherboards are thicker than B450, for example, and things like that. I didn't know that, but apparently that's true. You get some benefits like very good VRAM cooling over here. You get PCI 4.0, so if you want your SSDs to be absolutely blazing fast, which ours are when we get to that point, then you should go with the X570 chipset. There's also, you can go with B550, but I think some of the B550 and X570 motherboards, there isn't that much of a price difference. So that's why going with this X570 chipset is a good idea for the future proofness as well, because we know the processors that at least the next generation that's coming out, they can also go with this motherboard. So if you feel like you want to upgrade, you can just change your CPU and there you go. Your PC is a bit faster. But in this motherboard case, there is a lot of features that kind of start to make sense with the price, okay? First of all, it's got Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5 built in. And I very much like this Wi-Fi antenna, by the way, because it's got a magnet on the bottom over there. So you can kind of put it anywhere that's magnet and it stays there. So it's not just flying about. It's very good. I like it a lot. So we have 3 times M.2 slots over there for your NVMe drives. We have 1 GB Intel LAN port in the back. We have plenty of USB ports. There's 6 SATA ports on the motherboard as well if you want to upgrade to different SSDs or SATA SSDs. There's integrated I/O shield. By the way, this motherboard also has like a audio amplifier built in, so it amplifies your microphone and headphones. So if you have maybe like high obedience. So if you have headphones or something like studio headphones that need a bit more power to kind of power them, then this motherboard can do it. Just plug them in the back, which is very interesting. It's quiet chipset fan type of thing over there. So this PC is really, really quiet. It is on, by the way, next to me over here. So that's good. It's got a USB-C case support. So if your case has a USB-C port, you can do that. It also supports ECC and non-ECC DDR4 memory. And it's got a little touch of RGB for those enthusiasts who can't live without RGB. Talking about you, Aaron. So when we're adding all these things up, especially the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which I think can come very useful in this, and you don't want to add any more PCIe, like cards in there, the price starts to make sense. Okay. Also, the orange and black design, it just fits perfectly in our design with this motherboard. So I think it's just a very good motherboard in that range. Now, if you want to go with some of the cheaper options, I'm going to leave some of the cheaper options below. If you don't need Wi-Fi, like just put a LAN port in and I don't need that, or I don't need that many M.2 slots, or I don't need this or that, then I'm going to leave a few alternatives that are cheaper below, like B450 and B550 design, or even X570 ones. So check them out below. Now, some of you are like, hey, a workstation, we need a 10 gigabit LAN or 10 gigabit Ethernet port for our NAS and things like that. Then I'm going to leave a motherboard down below as well. Then probably the next bang for buck is actually MSI X570 Creation or Prestige Creation motherboard, which you can see on the Mac Pro Killer video as well. It's a much more expensive motherboard, almost twice the price, but then you have the 10 gigabit LAN built in. Link below, by the way. So this is my thinking behind the motherboard. It's not very expensive. It's just like a kind of it's not mid-range. It's just into like a professional range. It's, I think, £260 or something like that. It has a lot of features that we need. Now, RAM. What RAM did you go with and why did I go with this RAM? This inside there is Patriot 128 gigabytes DDR4 at 3200 megahertz. You mental? Do you actually need that much RAM? Okay, so first of all, I got this Patriot RAM because it was the cheapest on Amazon. Why wouldn't you go with the cheapest option if all the specs are the same? And so far, it's working very good, okay? It looks absolutely sick as well. It looks completely black and it's just beautiful to look at. Now, what are some of the other options out there that you could get for? There's Corsair Vengeance that looks also black. I'm going to leave the links in the description. That's what I've used before as well. Like black, there's slight yellow kind of branding over there, but you're probably not going to see that. But there's no point of really going with the fancy memory in this case, or our case. So, because as you can see, the RAM is completely hidden behind there. So as long as it's just black, you just stick it in there and let it do its job. If you have like AIO or things like that, then maybe you want fancier RAM. But personally, I really like this just no RGB, black, completely like a Dark Knight type of thing. Feel for it. Every single stick of this RAM is 32 gigabytes. Now, if you don't need 128 gigabytes and you want to save a little bit of money, or you're like, do you know what? I can't spend that much on RAM, then why don't you get 2 times of these sticks? Get 2 of these, which cost half of the price, okay? Half of the RAM price, link below, and slot them in too. So you've got 64 gigabytes. And later on, when you're like, do you know what? My 3D rendering really needs some more memory and I could really do with 128 gigs. Then you can just add 2 more in there. Boom. Everything is fine. 128 gigabytes. Now, because we built this for the subscriber, I said, how much RAM do you want? You know, we can go with 64, 128, you know, whatever your budget allows. And he said, get 128. So if you want 128, just let them fall in. Looks very nice. Another thing to mention on the RAM over here is that Ryzen processors are very kind of sensitive about the RAM speed, you know, the megahertz, how fast the RAM is and things like that. The manufacturer says on the Ryzen 3950X that it supports up to 32 megahertz RAM, okay? So this is the max supported over there, okay? And you're thinking, hey, I've seen people use 3600 megahertz and even 4000 megahertz RAM. And you can do that. There is quite stable performance with these RAMs, but it's not officially supported by the manufacturer. And I think when going with Workstation and when a lot of our work is actually dependent on this PC, we want to go with the max supported over there. We don't want to kind of be too rogue and crossing the lines too much what we could do to gain the max performance, because later on it's going to bite us in the bum if, you know, having too fast RAM is corrupt our files or going to do something dodgy with our system. That's why I'm going with, I think this is perfect. And you're not going to gain so much more performance when going 3600 megahertz, okay? We're talking about tiny little bit more increase, or something is a little bit faster, but it's maybe more like when you're gaming or doing some things like that. When we're in the workstation use, it is fine to go with this much. Also, I just want to say another note over here, how much RAM Premiere Pro needs. Now, if you've seen the build video for this PC, okay, it's like 1 hour and 30 minutes, something like that. And if I open this project in my computer, in my editing PC, which has 64 gigabytes of 3200 Corsair engines, then as I'm opening the project, the RAM usage goes right up there. It's going to use all of the RAM that's out there. So I've seen all of my 64 gigabytes sucked dry by Adobe Premiere Pro. So it uses quite a lot over there. But it's not necessary in most cases. It just makes like opening B projects a bit faster and loading media much faster. Next off, we have the SSDs. What are your operating system on there and storage? So what's going on in this PC? Okay, so we are running 3 M.2 NVMe drives over there. One of them is PCIe 4.0, which is a Sabrent rocket, and that is absolutely blazing fast, okay? We're getting 5,000 megabytes read speeds and 4,200, almost 4,300 megabytes write speeds, which is, I don't think anyone needs that much at this point. I don't know, how could you use all of this? That PCIe 4 Sabrent rocket drive is 1 terabyte in size, and that is our OS drive, which goes on the top slot over there. This runs like our OS system, and 1 terabyte is big enough to fit all your programs and everything you need on the OS drive, okay? You could probably opt for 512 gigabytes if you think, nah, I don't have that much program, so I'm gonna put all the bigger files somewhere else, or cached files somewhere else, or scratch disks somewhere else. Then probably 512 gigabytes would be as well. And why would you go with Sabrent rocket instead of like Samsung or, you know, Corsair or some other brands? Then you could pretty easily see that our Sabrent rocket, for the price of performance, is very good bang for buck. And when I realized that, you know, I'm just been recommending them ever since. Going with that one, the performance is unbelievable. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they are the fastest M.2 SSDs, NVMe SSDs in the world. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think, unless maybe it's changed now. At some point, I think they were. Plus, you get like a 5-year warranty, and the actual durability of this is very good as well. So definitely worth checking them out. And you can go with 500 gigabytes to save a little bit of money if you need that. So what are the other two drives? Now, the other two drives are fancy as drives. They are called T-Force Cardea Liquid 512 gigabyte NVMe SSDs. Now these are PCIe 3.0 drives, so they're not as fast, but they're fast enough. They are 3,400 megabytes read speed, and that is up to, and 2,000 megabytes write speed. Now, according to my testing, I tested around 3,020 to 3,100 read speed and 2,400 or 2,500 write speed for these SSDs. That's megabytes per second, by the way. So plenty fast, if you would say. Do you need that? SSDs that are water cooled, as you can see, liquid, Cardea Liquid, it means water cooled SSDs. Not really. They are just for big fans and a bit like kind of a show off for this build to show that, okay, this is quite high end and something extra is going on. Okay, they're just for the show. There's no real performance gain by going with these SSDs. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could go with Sabre Rocket 3.0 drives, which are much cheaper than these ones if you want to go with these, and save some money, and you're not actually giving up any of the performance. Okay, you can just save money, and actually Sabre Rocket 3.0s I think are even faster than these ones, so better drives and things like that. If you're thinking, oh, the drives are blue though, and I don't want these to fit with my orange and black, you know, theme, then don't worry about it. Every single one of these motherboard M.2 slots on this Aorus Ultra X570 motherboard have a thermal guard on it, or like a little heatsink that's black. So whatever drive you put underneath, it's not going to ruin your color theme. Okay, you can put completely like orange, or sorry, green drive over there, and it wouldn't matter because you would only see black. So basically we've gone with the SSDs and no hard disk drives or SATA SSDs, because we can upgrade to the SATA SSDs later, but this is like a 3-part storage workflow that is absolutely blazing fast and quiet as anything. So we have one OS drive, we have one project drive, and one scratch disk or something like that drive. So if you put programs on the 512 gigabytes, then another one could be used for backups or anything else, depends how it is. But I think 3-part is very good workflow. So you have your OS drives and programs on the main drive or the C drive, and then the other ones are project and scratch disk, things like that. If you do want to check out these Cardea Liquid SSDs, I'll leave a link for these in the description. It's pretty cool. By the way, you can change all the colors of these, the liquids inside. So if you want to change them, you feel to do them. I've got a guide on my channel how to do that. It's not the easiest, but if you follow my guide, you can do it, no problem. GPU, our only bit that is green over there. And I was going to hack it. There is a hack guide online how you can actually change these LEDs over there to different color. Apparently NVidia GPUs actually have an RGB, this one over there, but it's limited to software only to show green. But I would have to flash the OS on that GPU, and it's not very stable. So because we wanted it to be stable, I'm going to leave it green over there. And to be honest, now when I've had it a little bit, it is actually very nice, like a little accent of green. I didn't know that kind of it can fit in there. And the gray or silver type of design for this graphics card actually fits in with the rest of the motherboard silver bits that are over there. So I think it actually fits into the system quite well. Wait a second, Lauri, you haven't mentioned what GPU there is. This GPU is RTX 2080 Ti Founders Edition. And you're like, hey, why are you talking to me about 2018? This is an old GPU. Now we have 30 series GPUs. Why would you put an old GPU in there where the 30 series are so much better and look so much nicer? Now, I agree with you. They are so much nicer and they are so much better. But because of the new GPU launches from NVIDIA, everyone thinks that their 2080 Ti's are rubbish, and they're selling them for very, very cheap. So I paid for this Founders Edition. It looks brand new. There's not a single scratch on it. There's not full of dust. It's just literally just like new, okay? I paid for it. £550, which is less than half of the retail price. And it's still about 150 to 200 pounds cheaper than the 3080. Now, this one actually has a bit more VRAM than the 3080. So if you need that in some of your programs, it is also a good option to go with this one. So as you can see, this GPU is very good price to performance when buying secondhand. Now, I'm not telling you this lightly, because recommending secondhand things is often a bit of a risk, because you never know what you're going to get. But at this point, it's such a good time to look into them that it's worth getting them. Okay, if you can opt out for a little bit more, get the 3080. It's going to be a fantastic card in there. It can fit in there. Your power supply can support it. Everything. It's going to be good. And if you can afford it, just buy it. The link for this is in the description. But if you're looking to save a few bang for buck, it is a good time to do that. And you're not losing so much on the performance, especially when looking at Adobe Premiere Pro performance. This card is not that bad at all. In fact, it's absolutely fantastic. I have already made a video how do these new 3080s and 3090 GPUs perform on Premiere Pro compared to these 20 series RTX cards by NVIDIA. Then check out my video there where I'm talking about this, and you can see why going with this GPU is very good option, especially price to performance ratio. Because of the extra RAM that we're getting on this GPU as well, it kind of helps with 8K video workflow. So if you're looking for 8K, editing station, then going with this one will help you a bit more, especially in DaVinci, because they will need a lot of VRAM from the graphics cards. So it's worth actually checking this out. And if you don't like this silver design, then there's plenty of third-party manufacturers out there that do like blacks or different RGBs or auras or whatever, so you can check them out in the description below as well. But I know that this won't last forever, that you can get this 2080 Ti so cheap, because not everyone's going to be, once they're out, they're out there, and then it's probably worth going with the 3080 card, which looks absolutely fantastic as well and performs actually better than this one. Enough of graphics cards, let's talk about the power supply. It's probably the most boring bit of the build, but for some reason I've grown to kind of enjoy this bit as well. Now, I've seen some people say online that having too big of a power supply is gonna hurt your computer. Too much power goes into your parts and it may break it. Now that is absolutely bonkers. Whenever you hear someone say that, it's ridiculous. It doesn't work like that, okay? It's not that the power supply is pushing the power into the system. The power supply just makes it available and shows how much it is. And the parts are gonna pull the power in as much as they need. Think of it as like a, ice cream milkshake. Let's say you have ice cream milkshake and then loads of people are there with a straw trying to get their bit. They are sucking this out from there. Now, the bigger the milkshake is, the more milkshake different people can have, if that makes sense. So in there we have a 1000 watt Corsair power supply, and you are right if you say that it is an overkill for this system, but there is a slight kind of thinking behind why going with this one. In theory, the maximum that our system over here can pull is around 600 watts of power. That is by, just going with the specs, what the manufacturers they say and things like that. I've often found the case to be a little bit more than what the manufacturers say. I can see the CPU in stock, no overclocking, pulling about 30-40 watts more than said by the manufacturer. But this for that. I think going with a little bit of a safe power supply also gives you a lot of future-proofness and just safeness, that this is your workstation, okay? You don't want your power supply to say, sorry, I can't give you any more power, and your different parts of, CPU or GPU are wanting to use all of the power they can. Then it's good to have something power supply that gives them enough power so they can run as much as they want or as fast as they can. You don't want your power supply to be limiting things or getting blue screens because there wasn't enough power pulling from the power supply. Now, even our case, it is quite mental, and you can go with like Corsair 750 or 850 power supplies, and you can save some money by going below. I know that the power supplies might not be as easily available at this point in time, but you could save some money by going with 750 or 850. In our case, I'm thinking this is a workstation, right? And you want it to be future-proof as well. Maybe you're using DaVinci and you're at some point going to add a second GPU and run them on SLI. You want a power supply that you don't have to change out, but just plug some more cables in and do that. In our case, we can do that. If you get with quite a high or high-end power supply, they are kind of for life. Depends, how much your system are going to increase, but they can run you for a very, very, very long time. So this 1000-watt power supply is going to do that for us. Give power to all of this, keeps us safe and gives a lot of future upgradability to do that. But like I said, you kind of think about your situation. Do you need the 1000 watts? Maybe you need less, so go with the less ones and save some money over there. And by the way, if you're asking, can I run the 3090 on this power supply? Then yes, you can. Let's say you're going to buy the 3090 or 3080, then you can easily run that with this power supply as well. Now, if you completely bonkers and buy the 3090 and run it on SLI, then you might be running short on this power supply. Then you should go with a high one. But whatever your budget allows, and definitely see below, if you can get the cheaper ones, then you can save some money over there as well. Now the case. What case did I go with? Now this is the BeQuiet Pure Base 500DX case. And as you can see, I think it just fits the build absolutely beautifully. Now it's all black and just this orange over there. I think it's just a really, really good looking case. Okay, and not just that, it's also a very good performance case because there's very good airflow coming from here. The case already comes with 3 fans applied. I have bought one extra fan that I installed in the back, and then the back fan went to the front. So there's 2 fans in the front for intake fans, and then there's 2 exhausts. This exhaust in the back is like extra performance fan, so it can exhaust it even faster to push it out over there. So it's very good airflow, especially for our air cooling case over here. We want there to be a lot of airflow going through. There's meshes everywhere that's going to protect most of the dust or rubbish to get into your system. I've just got to mention the design again. It just looks, I think, absolutely fantastic. Okay, and you're thinking, how much did you pay for that absolutely fantastic looking case? In fact, it only cost £96, I think, for me, which is very affordable considering the price of the rest of the components and the other cases out there. There is a lot of different cases that you can go with, and I'll leave some options below. If you want a bit more white, a bit more RGB, or a bit newer Corsair cases or things like that, then absolutely, the case doesn't really matter in your performance when building a workstation or things like that. Apart from maybe NZXT cases, I think they can be a little bit of a struggle because the airflow is quite bad on those cases. But you can still manage if you do that. I know they look absolutely beautiful. I completely agree. But the intake of their cases is very, very limited on the side. So going with this case mostly was because obviously it's cheap. And it looks fantastic and it's very good performance for the airflow things. So I don't see anything wrong with that. There's only plus points over there. So that's why we went with this. I also went with the 1 extra fan in the back. I'll leave that in the description as well if you want to go with exact same configuration as I have done over here. Oh, and I almost forget to mention that there is some custom sleeved cables. Your power supply doesn't come with these orange and black cables over there. These custom sleeved cables are by Thermaltake, not Thermaltake. What am I talking about? You've got these cables, they get extra, you can buy them extra, and they just kind of slot into your power supply cables. You don't need these cables? Absolutely not. So if you got the power supply, you can just make it work, but because of the accents and just a little bit of extra, it just looks beautiful. For that reason, we got these over there. So if you want to get these exact same ones, I'll leave the link in the description as well. So there's 1 for the motherboard, 2 for the GPU, and then 1 for the CPU on the top over there, orange and black sleeved cables. Now altogether these make it look extra premium, extra nice, and extra I mean business PC. Now this is all the thinking behind all these parts. I know this video has been quite long over there, but hopefully like this helped you kind of get into my mind, and I didn't just go and just randomly pieces put together, and that's why I've carefully chosen every single part over here to make the performance and price very, very good. And do you know what? You can even go with some of the alternatives. Even if you go with these, it's going to be absolutely beast of a machine for you. And I understand that you just have to do whatever your budget allows and just do that. But if you want to do, and you really mean business for creating videos, and you just want something to run constantly and very well and very fast, then this is the thinking behind this PC. Probably the best PC you can build on a Ryzen AM4 socket. Okay, it's not Ryzen AM4 socket, it's just AM4 socket. Okay, so my friends, thank you very much guys for watching. Feel free to check out part 1 and part 3 when they're coming out, or if they're already out, check them out in the playlist, as well as some other PC build videos on the channel. If you want to see the Mac Pro killer PC build video that I am using currently, that's my main editing PC, then check out that one as well, 3-part series on that. Or if you're really like looking for something a budget workstation Ryzen build, then check out that video as well. There's a 3-part series on a budget build that only costs £740 or even less now, so definitely worth checking out if you're looking into getting into video editing or into creative work and you want to get something on the way and start off. Now, thanks very much for watching. I think I already said that. Subscribe if you haven't already, like that video, it will actually make a massive difference. If you have anything else to say, anything you want to do, I'll meet you in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this. I'll see you soon. Bye bye, my friends.